This one guy named Zelophehad, and I would, if we were in a classroom, I'd say, now everyone say it with me, Zelophehad. It's like the most mellifluous Hebrew name, and even if it looks and sounds ridiculous. So Zelophehad, okay. It turns out this guy died in the wilderness. As of course, the whole generation died in the wilderness or dies in the wilderness. And in theory, of course, his sons should inherit the land that he has been assigned, right? Like in Canaan. But he doesn't have any sons, right? He just has 5 daughters, right? And I don't know, for those of us, it's not even me, but for people of a certain generation, right? The Zelophehad has 5 daughters. All I hear is, I have 5 daughters. That's Fiddler on the Roof for the non-Jews. Okay, he's got 5 daughters, no sons, and they are concerned with no sons to inherit. Does Zelophehad's property just, I don't know, like disappear? What happens to it? Does it get absorbed by some other tribe? This is a question for which Moses actually has no answer. So he brings the case before God, inquiring of God directly. And the answer is, perhaps given the patriarchy, somewhat surprising. You know what? These 5 women are right. And the daughters of Zelophehad do indeed get their father's hereditary landholding. And what's more, we're presented, given this like case example, okay, let's lay out the formal rules of inheritance. The order goes, first it passes to sons. If no sons, then to daughters. If no daughters, then to the man's brothers. If no brothers, then to the man's uncles. And if the man has none of these things, it goes to the nearest relative within his clan. Remembering, the concern, again, is to keep the land in the family as much as possible. Now, I think we should admit that for a patriarchal society, this is pretty cool, right? Yes, sons inherit first, but then it goes to daughters. Right? I mean, I do think that's sort of revolutionary. You can imagine, certainly, I think, a world in which if the man had no sons, it went directly to his brothers. Right? That would be perfectly logical and almost expected. So, you know, a solid half a thumbs up for this law. This, I don't know, semi-satisfactory feeling lasts for all of 9 chapters. Because the very last chapter of Numbers, chapter 36, comes back to the case of the daughters of Zelophehad, with a reminder to all of us that the rules of the patriarchy are deep and strong and unavoidable. So what's the situation? Some of Zelophehad's kinsmen come to Moses with a new concern. And they're like, look, right, God commanded you, Moses, to give the land for inheritance by lot, right? That is, God's decided where everybody lives, and also commanded to give the inheritance of Zelophehad to his daughters. Okay, but since it's the case that when women marry, all of their possessions transfer to their husband, then when Zelophehad's daughters marry, their land, right, our tribe's divinely given inheritance, will pass to whomever they marry. So what happens if they marry men from outside our tribe? What if they married a bunch of, Issachar guys? Suddenly we're down a plot of land that was supposed to be ours, given by God. But it's bad for us. We lost land, but it's also going against the divine will. The answer, of course, in this case, I think not surprisingly at all, is, oh, yeah, they're right. The daughters of Zelophehad have to marry within their own tribe. That, that's just the land thing overrides free will, or free choice at least. They have to marry within their own tribe. And you know what, just like I did before, we're going to make it a whole rule. Every daughter who possesses an inheritance in any tribe of Israel will marry someone from within her own tribe so that the Israelites can continue to possess their ancestral inheritance. And again, the concern is that no inheritance pass from one tribe to another tribe. So in other words, with the freedom to inherit that was granted in Numbers 27, with that freedom also comes a restriction, right? A different sort of restricting of these women's agency. And at the end of this story, and at the end of the book of Numbers, this is the end, the daughters of Zelophehad do indeed marry, and of course within their own tribe, just as they're supposed to. What's maybe not instantly apparent is that, like, all the good we felt in Numbers 27, right? The entire notion of women inheriting their father's land and how great that is, that the whole thing is basically entirely theoretical. Yes, the land goes to his daughters, but his daughters have to go right back to men, right? It's really just replicating the passage from under the father's authority to under the husband's authority all over again. Not with vows this time, but rather with land ownership. The daughters of Zelophehad get to inherit their father's promised property in Canaan. But they get married here in the wilderness before Israel even enters Canaan to take possession of it. So yeah, they inherit the property, but they never actually own it. There's not a single second where they stand on that land in Canaan and control it. They may hold the prospective title to it for these 9 chapters, but it's never theirs. In a sense, the daughters of Zelophehad are something of a legal middleman or middlewoman, right? They're transferring this property from one man to another. And so for all of the women in the future who are to inherit, about whom this law is given. In other words, even with the daughters of Zelophehad in their example, the land always really belongs to men. It's just sometimes we need women to help, like, bridge the gap between the men.